Joining me today in moderating this conference is Lina Khalil. Lina is a partner in Key Capital and an angel investor, and sits on the boards of several organizations and associations. She is recognized as one of the top women entrepreneurs by Forbes Middle East, and she will be introducing the next segment with Andrew Waitman, who I'm very, very grateful to have with us today.
Welcome, Andrew, and welcome to everyone who's joined us today. I'm going to take 2 minutes to give the audience a little bit of background. And please jump in, Andrew, because there's no way I can articulate you. And I've read a lot about what you've done as well as you would, but I understand that you've been involved in over 30 technology companies. You lead a very successful SaaS software, and you were voted CEO of the Year 2024. So like, I don't know, the small nuggets of or highlights are just the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much more to say. So it'll be great if you just give us a 1 minute of who Andrew is, and then we can jump into some questions.
Sure, Lena, nice. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to chat with you. No, I've been on a fascinating journey. I'm an engineer by training, and I have an MBA as well, but I've been in the business of creating businesses for nearly 40 years. And so I've been both a venture capitalist, and now I'm an operator. And both of them were a lot of fun, but I could tell you, Lena, that I love building businesses. There is something really energizing about creating something from nothing and impacting people around the world globally. My previous business, we operated in about 35 countries. My current business, we're in about 10 countries. And it's fabulous to organize as the world is getting a little bit, as you've probably heard the term, deglobalized. It's great to create a company that's a truly global business.
Amazing. Welcome. I'm sitting in Dubai today in the stories offices. So today it's all about stories and purpose. So although I'm an operator myself, and sometimes the operational excellence gets the better of us, I think I need to pull back and really focus on the well-being. And one of the main reasons we're here, it's World Mental Health Day tomorrow. And really, as you know, you're a builder, and as you're building the companies and achieving so much and reaching so many people, how have you balanced mental health and just financial growth or success?
Yeah, well, I think that is a great question with regards to, you know, Aristotle said, you know, never to extreme, never to excess. Life is a balance. And, you know, I have a family, which I think helps keep perspective and balance. You know, I think I work, you know, I have a physical workout regime. You know, I think meditation is something that a lot of people, you know, taking the time to be in nature. So I think it's about finding what is in harmony for you. You know, I love doing what I'm doing. I love working with the team that I'm working with, and that energizes me. So, you know, in some sense, I think it's everybody is on their own journey, and everybody has to find what gives them balance in their life, balance or harmony. You know, you've probably heard the term, and probably your audience has heard the term work-life balance. I tend to use the term work-life harmony. You know, if your family is, you know, if you have to travel for work or whatever, you do want, you know, you still have those special moments with your family, whether it's, you know, going camping, walking through a forest, whatever. So it's finding the right balance that keeps, you know, everything in harmony.
Amazing. And just coming back to purpose, how do you kind of get your compass, your purpose, the direction? Is it more of a, how did you kind of navigate your personal purpose?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've had a fascinating. I met a billionaire many years ago, and I couldn't even spell the word venture. Okay, I didn't know what it was, and so most of my career has been learning about new adventures. Okay, so and then I had some kind of unusual circumstances during the 2008 financial collapse, such that I had seen my purpose as helping. I'm based in Canada. I'd seen my purpose as building a Canadian venture firm that would then develop and encourage and enable Canadian startups. But through a set of circumstances, I was no longer able to do that, and I had to reinvent myself. And so I reinvented myself by volunteering in some companies that I'd personally invested. And the founder asked me to become the CEO, which I had never thought about being a CEO. So, so my navigation, I think everybody's on their own path. In some ways you might say I stumbled into being a venture capitalist. I stumbled into being a CEO. And then I grew into it. I do believe, Lena, in long-term learning or lifelong learning. And like your last speaker, I vociferously read a lot of books. So when I was a venture capitalist, I was learning how to be a venture capitalist every single day. Every day was day one. And as a CEO, I'm constantly reinventing myself and learning. And, if you think about how Gen AI, not just technology, because obviously what's going on in the global marketplaces affects your business, as the war in Europe affected us. But you're constantly reinventing. How do I understand where I am and where I need to go? And the orienting thing for me, Alina, is how do I help orchestrate people towards a great common purpose? So my purpose, I see, is helping bring groups of people together to do things greater than any individually we could do. And I've been now a CEO for 15 years, 60 quarters. I've never had a down or flat quarter. And that's orchestration. And I would say fighting the forces of entropy, and we can get into that later. But in some ways, I'm an entropy slayer. I bring positive energy to defeat, entropy, which is kind of the natural state of things. Your kid's bedroom is always a mess. That's entropy.
Yeah, I think creating momentum is kind of like a bit of magic sparkle.
Yes.
And that brings me on to the next point. And really, I think it's really great that you've been on both sides of, the builder and the venture side. And if I look at statistics, they say 65% of business failure comes from conflict. So coming back to that, really the internal energy of the organization. So, in terms of fostering internal well-being in an organization to deliver the wealth for everyone and to kind of create momentum, how have you tapped into that?
Yeah, Lena, it's a very important point about how you actually achieve success as a company. And there's no question the collective health. We use a tool called Office Vibe, which measures, you can tell by the name, the vibe. It's like modern day management by walking around in a remote world. But the mental health of the collective, okay? And everybody needs to feel that they're part of something purposeful, okay? And one of the ways we attend to the strength of our company, obviously, so just to frame Assent is in the business of transparency in complex manufacturing supply chains, okay? So, if you abuse or misuse, you will eventually lose. And we bring the data to your manufacturing company from your supply chain to make sure that, so we have a very, very purposeful business, a global business, and that energizes a lot of folks. But within the realm of what you're talking about is how do you get cohesion? How do you get collaboration? How do you get a healthy culture? Okay. And I am very active on how we create and foster an environment which people can bring their best self. And that comes from, feeling safe. It comes from feeling purposeful, and it comes from feeling that your contributions are progressing the company. Success is its own self, like you talked about momentum, it's its own self energy. And what good companies have is what I call a virtuous cycle, where people feel fulfilled, their careers are advancing, the company is moving, making progress, moving forward. And it's where people feel stagnant or isolated or alone, or not going anywhere, that they get frustrated, right? And the black wolf comes out.
So I think coming back to just scaling and kind of fast-paced environment, when have you been in a situation when you had to compromise, or it's kind of like a moment of, okay, this is a pivotal moment, I have to change the way I do things, or I have to look at this completely different?
Well, as you are well know, COVID changed for all of us. We were on quite a growth trajectory. We were hiring a lot of people, and then COVID slammed into the global environment, and we all went through a period in which we had to make judgments about the future that were not clear. Nobody kind of knew how long we were going to be locked down, sent to our homes, which countries, where that was happening and how it was affecting our employees in different places. And then, as you know, there were different rules and requirements. And we had an organization at the time of around 400 or 500 people, and how we made the right decisions at that time was very difficult. Because there was, business wants a certain amount of foresight, a visibility, and there was a situation. Another situation was when the Ukraine war broke out. We were affected by that quite dramatically in a number of ways, and had to start making decisions in Europe that were different, including trying to help people out if they were caught up in what was going on there. And so I think you're faced at different times in a business with a lack of clarity of what's going to go on in the future, and you're making decisions that are affecting people. And that is probably one of the most stressful times for a CEO, because, for example, do you need to cut a certain number of people because you were expecting to grow at a certain rate, and you can no longer see that, and that affects people's lives. And so you have to consider, what is right for the entire business, but it always does affect people ultimately.
Yeah, Dr. Gabor spoke about it yesterday. Really, one of the biggest kind of mental health issues is uncertainty and lack of direction. It's a big issue. And I think the more you normally have control, the more it impacts your mental health when you don't. So, that little kid playing in the park really doesn't care about control or where we're going. So they're managing their mental health is a little bit easier. Coming back to just mental health, stories are creating a mental health committee. So I think this is something they've asked us to ask everyone taking part. So what would your recommendation be for their advisory committee to focus on, or what would you like to see them do with organizations or in partnership with organizations like yours or with VCs in the market?
Yeah, so I think part of what Stories is doing is raising, education at some level is always an important part of the conversation, because as you know, historically, various aspects of mental health carried stigma and carried bias. And so one of the ways we as humans, as people, can kind of relate is we learn about, oh, I didn't understand that, or why was I feeling like that? We use stories to explain, hey, when that happens, this is how I feel. Okay. And then these are coping mechanisms that I can, that has worked for me. And so I do think, at Assent, we take mental health very seriously. We have a variety of programs, both formal, okay, in terms of getting mental health assistance, for like medical assistance. We also have a variety of what I would call purposeful activities, which really, we have activities where teams go out and do community work. And obviously some of the most, positive feedback comes from those experiences working as a team, in local communities. And we highlight those during all hands and so on. So I think stories can help beyond the education, can help kind of, here are some ideas in which organizations, both venture capital firms and emerging businesses, have helped the mental health of their employees, go through. These are some of the formal programs that have been made available. And then these are some of the more ad hoc or event activities that are done that help with culture, mental health, and engagement. Some companies and not, companies have different paths and cultures. Dog Day, I think, people bring in their dogs, right? Is one thing that raises, for some companies, the mental health of the entire organization, as the warmth and the kind of pet ownership is a celebrated day. So everybody has to kind of find their own things, but I think stories can help. Hey, these things worked in these companies, and the wider you disseminate these positive success stories of helping team member employee health, the stronger we are collectively for it.
Amazing. Andrew, it's really lovely to speak to a builder, and I'm going to call you a builder just because it's not only about building, solutions, but really building people's confidence and, telling people that they also can do it and they can do it together, which is beautiful. So lovely to have you on with us today. I'll turn it over to the audience. We have Nadine to help us out. I hope you have a little bit of time for us to take questions from the audience.
I already submitted a question, but probably I'll get this chance to ask too, if you don't mind, since I was hearing what you were saying. But going back to my first question, it's what do you consider as wealth? Is it your network you have, your current job title, or your bank account balance?
Yes. So, I guess what I see kind of wealth is as kind of as a tool. Okay. It's not in the quantity, but in the proper use towards the fulfillment of kind of a virtuous and balanced life. So, obviously some people think of wealth as, a thing, a bank account. I think of it more in an enablement tool. Okay. It allows you, to gain autonomy. It allows you to, do what you are made to do, what your purpose is. Okay. And so, I'm kind of and I quote again Aristotle, it's not an end, okay? It's a means, and it's a means to do better things in the world, okay? And it enables you. So whether you can be an angel investor because you have wealth, whether you can create businesses, as the previous speakers talked about, the impact of creating millions of jobs, which she's now doing globally with Global Ventures. So I see it as a means. It's a mechanism. It's not an end. And so does that help give you a kind of a mindset about the importance and value of wealth?
No, definitely, because a lot of people are struggling, or like they kind of ruin their life for like just accumulating certain amount of money, and in the process they lose like the core value of why they are generating it from the beginning. But this takes me to if I may, to the second question. You were speaking about you've been a CEO for 15 years and all of your quarters are going up, but at certain point, like why CEOs are not sometimes okay with like bad quarters, and on the contrary, they could explain to their investors or like to their shareholders, it's okay because you have this, since we always brought you the positive results, be with us when there is like a negative result. And that's also affect the people working for the CEOs in a positive way, instead of always being you gonna be getting blamed and then the employees working for you getting blamed. You know, they are always gonna like cherish you when you're doing great results, and the moment you do a bad quarter, they forget all the 49 quarters that you brought the good results. And that's not only affect you, affects everyone working for you. How can you, in your position, try to change this? Like, I know it's so capitalist mindset, but how can we like push for more like balance in this? And that's it.
Yeah,
Thank you
no,
so much.
yeah, it's a good question. It's a great question about balance. In fact, I'll take it right to why do public companies get taken private? For the very topic that you're talking about is, hey, this business is not a bad business, but it may need to invest in a way that it takes more than one quarter to fix it. And so I do think every business has its own path and circumstances. But to your point, growth is one measure, okay? But if you're growing and not investing, and return on innovation was talked about with the last speaker, sometimes because of circumstances, because of how long it takes to kind of fix things, it may be that the business isn't doing well, and as you're articulating, you don't want everybody to get negative. And the way I'd state this is, creating a business is very, very difficult, very, very challenging. Okay, it takes positive growth mindset, a positive growth mindset, regardless of, you can put a lot of effort in, particularly in the early stage, and not get the outcomes you expected because it's just harder and there's more friction. Okay, so one shouldn't get overly negative on themselves, on their team, on their, and what did we learn? And I think the way you were posing the question was really good, is, failure is not something to be, I think Silicon Valley does this very well. Failure is a learning. Okay, it's a learning. What did we learn? And here's what we learned. And so if there was a currency to here's what we learned, it would show that maybe the financial results weren't what we were intending, but the learning was great. And now we're going to pivot, or we're going to adjust our business strategy to improve our results. But as you probably well know, and most of your listeners know, ultimately, we are all seeking to create something, and creation is measured, okay, by financial measures. Okay, it is a score-keeping system. It's not the only one, okay, but it is a critical one. And what it means is that resources are being efficiently deployed. Okay, and is the world better off? There's a great book, by the way, 400-year capitalistic history of America, that kind of goes from the Mayflower to today. And it shows how America developed into the strong nation it did, because, financial results are a measure. It's not the only measure. And I'm in the business of rebalancing profits and purpose, okay, mission and motivation for, return on investment. So I do think capitalism has sometimes times of over-rotating, and I do think I'm in the business of rebalancing that, as I think you recognized.
Thank you.
Hi there, Andrew. I'm coming in from Ottawa, Canada. Thank you so much for the time. I was wondering, as a CEO, how do you reconcile the external focus on customer demands, regulatory pressures, things like this, with the internal focus of fighting entropy in the team and making sure that you have alignment?
Willow, and the simple answer is it's magic. The alchemy is, it's an excellent question. In fact, I would say every entrepreneur, every CEO, when you talk about the term of what keeps you up at night, is where do you put your positive energy? And how do you sense what's going on internally, the health of your team, the health and the alignment. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee right now, Owen, and we have our annual event, which is about bringing our customers and our prospects, so our external folks, together in one place at one time. Okay, in the city of country music, and I have our extended leadership team here. We're having our quarterly business review, so taking care of the planning for 2025 and norming, storming, and team building together. So I think, look, my job as the CEO is to make sure the proportionate amount of time and interest and effort is put into making sure we understand as a team where we're going, what the mission, the vision, and the values are for our business, and that we are setting a plan in place that everybody can get behind and have OKRs or KPIs. Equally, my job and the leadership team's role is to be sensing what's going on externally with regulations, with customers, trends, and making sure that we're responding and adapting to that. Assent has done that extraordinarily well over the last decade. And it's about where we put our energy, and then who, like in some sense, I'm a conductor of an orchestra, where the right people doing the right engagement with customers and with prospects and with partners and our subject matter experts learning about the rules, how we all come together and make music together. And that music sounds magical, which is, continuous success. So that's a tricky question. It's a great question, Owen, but that's kind of, it's where do we put our positive energy, both for the internal team to make sure it's healthy and a great culture, and everybody is organized to do the right work at the right time for the right needs of the marketplace, and then constantly sensing and engaging as we are here in Nashville. So hopefully that was helpful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Owen.
Okay, so we did have another question in the Q&A from Katrina, but I believe that she would rather that we ask the question on her behalf. So if I was to read it out, would you say positive growth mindset is equal to having a beginner's mind and applying it on a daily basis, i.e. having humility and being attuned to and believing in and validating the creative spirit within the collective of the corporate body?
If we had to distill the key ingredients of leadership to organize people, to grow a great purpose, okay, whatever your company's purpose is, humility is at the heart of it, okay? I also think a positive growth mindset is one in which there's several aspects to that in her question. One is that you're open to listen, okay, and learn. And I believe in lifelong learning. I believe in continuous absorption of new information, as Owen was alluding to, because the world's changing, and it's changing very quickly. And so if you think about Gen AI, so the positive growth, think about Gen AI for every business today. Gen AI, the foundation models are going to change every business, okay, in some way, internally and how you deliver value to your customers. And the growth mindset says, hey, what worked for us in the past may not work for us today. How do we reevaluate how we need to manage change, enable change, communicate change, and bring the team along with it? How can we help with training? How can we help with enablement? How can we help with, facilitating the tools and encouraging people to use, whether it be for code development or code writing or so on. So look, building business and life in general is hard, okay? And it takes seeing the positive about even when we stumble and fall down. That's a learning moment. What did we learn for it? Let's pick ourselves up. Let's learn from it. Let's do something a little different, a little better, a little stronger until we get, success in the direction that we anticipate. So humility is a huge part of it. Positivism is a huge part of it. And then grit. Grit is resilience. You go, okay, I didn't get exactly where I wanted to, but I'm going to pick myself up and I'm going to keep moving forward. Progress, positive progress is the ultimate measure for any company. Even small steps, even if you have ambitions that want to take you farther, faster, small steps towards that is important. So hopefully that answers the question.
Thank you,
Andrew,
Andrew.
Thank you for having me.
Before you go, thank you so much for your time and good luck in your event.
Okay.